I'm going to start this video off quite bluntly by saying this. Guild Wars 2 is not perfect. I'm sorry, fanboys, but it isn't. It is, however, very, very good. But, again, it has faults. Big faults, but these faults can very easily be resolved by the time it's out. Again, it's still in beta, it's not out yet, there isn't a release date. So, my experience at Guild Wars 2, I've played about 25 hours of the beta weekend event and the stress test, and I'm a long-time Guild Wars 1 fan. I put something ridiculous like 2,000 hours into that game, so I was quite excited when there was a sequel. So, onto my impressions of the game itself. The combat, first of all, is, well, it's great. It's sort of like Kingdoms of Amalur or Divinity 2, if you've played either of those games. It's very fast, very dynamic. You're jumping around all over the place. In fact, if you aren't moving around, you're gonna die, basically. You have to keep moving to get out of the way of enemy attacks. You have to keep moving when you're casting spells, even. It's really all about movement, and particularly stopping enemy movement. There's a few quests or events where you really do have to worry about enemy movement. There was a great one. Bandits were attacking a water plant, and there's some giant pipes, and you must defend them from a guy carrying a bomb. You can stop his movement by sticking things around him. You know, if he can't move towards the pipes with the bombs, he can't blow them up. You know, there's a lot of movement going on in this game, and because there's so much movement and so much reaction with dodging, one of the things that did worry me slightly when I went into this was, is lag going to be a problem? If you've got a very high ping, then you're not going to be able to react and dodge as fast. And I tried this on my 40 megabit fibre connection at home, and I also tethered my phone to my laptop to get an idea what it'd be like with lower ping, and to be honest, it's fine. I didn't really notice any problems with lag even in the beta stage, and I didn't check this really for the stress test, but from what I saw, the stress test was even more stable, so it's a pretty good game so far in terms of lag. The event system is pretty good as well, to be honest. There's two types of events. You have the heart event, and these are static. You sort of wander around the world, and there's a guy, and he'll say, oh hey, find me some iron bars, or some tools, or dispose of some unexploded bombs, or kill some Flame Legion char. And you go out, you do any one of these things, and it'll contribute to a bar. The bar is specific to you, from what I can tell. Other people's contribution to the bar doesn't count towards yours, so you have to fulfill these by yourself for the most part. And these quests, I say, are static. They don't really change. This guy will always ask for these things. Once you do it, it doesn't really lead anywhere. The quest giver usually changes into a merchant for karma points, which is a currency you get for fulfilling quests and events, and you generally get some nice unique stuff from them with unique appearances and so on. But the really important thing about these heart events is that they lead you around the world and let you encounter the dynamic events, which are the far more important things you've probably heard about. The dynamic events are the sort of thing where you'll wander around the world and there'll be, oh hey, there's this area that you must purge of the Flame Legion char. So you go around, you start destroying their idols and killing the people that attack you, so that's going well. But as you destroy them, then a flame shaman will appear, and he is a brutally difficult boss. And anyone can join in with this. He gets much, much stronger as more people join in. It gets that boss fight is a bit broken, to be honest. He scales up so quickly that when you have 30 people, he is essentially impossible and will wipe everyone in 50 feet of him in one hit. But again, it's very fun. It's very varied. There's another one in the Nornlands where you have to attack a dragon worshipper keep from two sides simultaneously. So you have two groups of people attacking it from two sides, and again, when you meet in the middle, there's a big scuffle and a huge boss appears, who is again ridiculously overpowered when you have lots of people. And this brings me on to my main complaint, really. Combat is a bit unbalanced. It's not so bad if you're a ranged class, because you're not taking damage, but essentially in Guild Wars 2, at the moment, again, it's beta, this can change, but melee is essentially dead. There is no point playing melee, especially against bosses, because what's the point of being in melee when a boss can just go up to you and kill you in one hit? I mean, I had a Guardian where wielding a shield with the protection boon and a signet that reduced my incoming damage by 10%, and this dragon worshipper boss killed me in one hit. It's absurd. I do think this is a problem, just the fact that as more people get around this boss, his damage scales up, and as soon as you get to that, you just get this ridiculous situation. I think it'd be better if he started getting more effects, like he started inflicting bleeding or fear on people, so that it's harder to do damage to him and you have to pay much more attention to what's going on. But just flat increasing damage and letting him kill you in one hit is not fun. I mean, you spend most of the time on the floor, and in the end for that fight I just ended up switching out to a staff and hitting him from range, because there's no point in playing melee. It's completely pointless. You just get killed, and that's my main complaint with the game at the moment. The combat is so unbalanced in that way. The other problem I have, again, is sort of to do with this. If you play only in the area of the game where you start off, like if you're a Norn and you start off in the Norn homelands, then if you only stay there, you will not gain enough levels to beat all that content. You have to go out to other places, effectively. My Norn Guardian character got to the situation where the people she was fighting were level 18, somewhere around there, and she was level 14, and it doesn't sound like a big difference, but in Guild Wars 2, oh my god, do levels make a difference. I mean, these level 18s were essentially taking off half my health or more in one hit. You have to go to other places, and like you have to go to the Char lands or the human lands or something to level up a bit more, and that's sort of cool, but at the same time it's a bit annoying, I think, because you just sort of are exploring this land and you're really getting going with it, and all of a sudden you just fight these things you physically cannot kill. You just don't do enough damage to them, and they do so much damage to you in return. But again, this is all stuff that can be fixed. I mean, I assume when the game is out and you have friends and stuff that are playing, that you'll be more encouraged to seek out the other lands to go to, and that won't be so much of a problem. But for the most part, those are the main problems I have. The other problem, of course, is the game graphically is laggy. I don't mean in terms of network now. I'm talking I have a pretty powerful computer myself, and it runs at 30 frames per second constantly, except for one glorious personal story quest where we went into a cave, and it was a very, very small cave, and it only had about 10 characters in it, and it ran at a glorious 60 frames a second, and that showed the game off so well. It was really, really nice to see. And the good thing at the moment is it's running at like 30 frames per second. It's essentially locked to that. And even though it's running at 30 frames per second, the game is completely unoptimized, from what I've heard. I mean, I've heard it runs entirely on the CPU, and it doesn't use the graphics card at all, really. And you know, it's the fact that it looks as good as it does and runs as good as it does before any optimization has been done is fantastic. And as soon as they can get more work happening on the GPU and multi-thread it some more, or whatever it is they're going to do, the game is going to run really smoothly and look fantastic. I mean, it really does look fantastic. If you've seen any of the videos of the landscapes and stuff, it looks amazing. Not necessarily technically the most amazing game, but aesthetically it is beautiful. I mean, it's I'd go as far as to say it's probably better looking than something like Skyrim by a long way, just because of the aesthetic of the game. It's wonderful. I tried to try PvP. I'm not a big PvP player myself. If any of you know me, I don't really like it all that much. But I thought, hey, world versus world looks like fun. Lots of running around, lots of things to do, laying siege to castles. You know, that's my sort of thing. So I thought I'd give it a go, and I entered the queue. 10 minutes later, I gave up. So, whether this is just a problem because of the beta, or if it's going to be like that on launch, I don't know, but I think some extra capacity there might be a pretty good idea. But I'm being negative about this game. I shouldn't be so negative about it, because it's so good. Just exploring this world is unbelievably fun. I mean, I was wandering around fighting some centaurs, escorting this guy and protecting him, and there's a windmill, and there's a path leading up the windmill. So I'm like, oh hey, let's see what's up here. And the path is broken, so you have to do a bit of jumping to get around it. You can't just walk up there. And you get to the top, and there's this character who's proclaimed himself king of the windmill. So you beat him down, and he gives you a skill point. And just little things like that are really cool. There's things hiding everywhere in this game. There's a whole underground section in the Norlands that you could only get to by diving underwater, for instance. Just this massive cave system going on there, and you know, I didn't notice it for many levels, and when I finally came back to it, and I was like, oh hey, there's this huge area under here that I never seen before, and it's really cool that can happen, that you can just sort of miss stuff and come back to it. And one of the reasons that's so cool is the level system in Guild Wars 2, where if you're in a low-level area, you get scaled down to that area. So if I'm level 20 character, and I enter a level 3 area, I get scaled down to level 3. And it's really quite interesting, because you never really get to a situation where you absolutely dominate an area. You can't just go back... I kept going back to the starting area. You know, I've leveled up now, I'm level 16, I've got a great sword. I've got all these extra skills, I've got some traits going on now. Amazing, I go back there, I'm still getting beat on by these level 3s. Like, they're not as harsh as they were when I was level 2, but they're still quite deadly if you're not careful. It's quite fun. You do lose a bit of sense of this progression, that your character is getting stronger. I mean, you do feel a bit stronger, but it's not like, oh hey, all of a sudden these terrible ice worms that were threatening me at level 2, they're just completely easy and I can wipe the floor with them just by blinking. It's not like that. It's, oh hey, this is an ice worm. If I'm not careful, this is still going to kill me even though I'm further on in the game. And that's really what the level indicator is at the moment. It's rather than how strong you are, it's, oh, this is how far into the game you are. And it works pretty well. I do like it. So I'm going to talk a bit about the professions. I've played mainly the Guardian because I wasn't really that interested in the Guardian. It was probably the profession I was least interested in, so I thought, oh hey, I'll give this a try. I also played the Engineer because that was the one I was most interested in. I then played a bit of the Warrior, Elementalist and Necromancer. I got the Elementalist, Warrior and Necromancer up to about level 5 each, and the Engineer got up to about level 12, and the Guardian got up to about level 18, I think it was. And I think, in all honesty, probably the Guardian and the Elementalist at the moment are my favourite classes. The the elementalist kit, the weapons for the elementalist, like, oh hey, you know, I've got a staff, is most mages in games, but the elementalist can use daggers. I think this is incredibly cool. It's actually viable to use melee weapons as a spellcaster, and it's not really something I've ever seen in a RPG type game before, especially something like an MMO. It's really quite interesting, and it works really well. In fact, going for 2 daggers in the main hand and offhand, that was my favourite build for the elementalist. When the lightning attunement, you get lightning whips. I mean, it's amazing. You can whip people with lightning, and then you can ride the lightning to them and have this massive explosion of more lightning. As you can tell, I like lightning. Lightning is good. And I really did enjoy it. I mean, I did try the scepter and the staff and stuff, and yeah, okay, they're cool, but I really do like this idea that you can play a spellcaster in melee. I mean, I did the same thing with the necromancer. A necromancer with the, I think it was the dagger again, has a lifesteal ability, which is pretty nice, especially since you can slash people in melee range and then absorb health from them when they start attacking you. It's pretty cool. I do like it. The warrior, I don't really like the warrior that much. I didn't think I was going into Guild Wars 2, and it just feels a bit bland to me. Oh hey, I'm hitting someone with a sword, or you know, hitting them with an axe or a hammer or something. It just feels a bit generic sometimes, and a lot of the time I actually ended up playing with the rifle with my warrior, just because it was pretty cool. It's very rare to see a warrior tanky sort of class being able to fight at range, and again, this does come down to the fact that range is much better than melee at the moment. And this, going back to the shaman event where he would just kill everyone in one hit, what's the point of going up to him and smacking him with a sword twice and then dying when you can just stand at the back and shoot him with a rifle? You know, and the rifle's pretty fun. It's got some pretty hefty debuffs. There's a skill with it that applies something like 5 stacks of vulnerability, and then you can do a killing shot with your adrenaline skill, and the damage is obscene. And it's pretty cool, to be honest. And then the engineer. Now, I really like the idea of the engineer with turrets and stuff, and grenade packs and flamethrowers. I think it's really cool, especially the fact it doesn't have many weapons to choose from, so all of its skills should in theory be very unique. You know, a grenade pack or bombs or something. It's not something that the other classes have access to, and I think that's pretty nice. The problem is that they don't really work. You have a grenade kit, and alright, that was pretty awesome when you got, there was a in the human lands, there's a town, and it's under siege by centaurs, and you can take it back, and then the centaurs launch a counterattack, and you get like 20 centaurs arriving at once, and grenades just destroy them. If you've got these 20 centaurs all clumped together, you can just spam all 5 grenades, and the tool belt utility skill that throws a whole heap of grenades, and you just destroy them. It was ridiculous. But then you get back out into the normal world where you don't have herds of centaurs to kill, and you've got normally like 2 or maybe 3 enemies to fight, and it's useless. You're better off just shooting them with your rifle or your pistols. It's completely useless. The bomb kits as well, I didn't really get to play much with it, but it's hard because the bombs are timed. You've got to line it up properly. Then you have the mine kit, which I haven't used, but I've heard that the damage is pathetic, and if you've got to swap out your weapon kit for you've got to swap out whatever weapon you're having, like the rifle, and I did like the rifle. It's got a fantastic combo set up in its skills, and you have to swap it out for something that doesn't do any damage until one specific moment. You expect it to do a hell of a lot of damage, but when it doesn't, it's a bit rubbish. And the fact you've got to actually swap out your weapons and lose a skill. As a guardian, for instance, you can keep your weapon and have a signet in one of your slots that reduces damage you take by 10%. But as an engineer, you've got to carry around a grenade kit, say, and you've either got to use that or just carry it around and it's not doing anything. You can't use it until you get this very specific situation. On the plus side, the turrets do seem to be pretty good. The rifle turret I had seemed to be doing at least as much damage as I was doing, and that was pretty nice. I didn't really try out any of the other turrets, but that one was pretty good, and that's the lowest end of the turrets. And yeah, it's pretty fancy, to be honest. The fact you can just double your damage, and you could carry potentially 3 turrets. Well, technically 4 if you include the healing turret, and that would be a hell of a lot of extra damage if you could fill them all up with like rocket turrets and rifle turrets and flame turrets, say. But the engineer does seem a bit limited. The other problem with the engineer, it doesn't have a melee weapon. It's the only class in the game that doesn't have a melee weapon, and it's saddening, really, because the engineer is potentially a really fun class. Like, it's fantastic for sort of area denial. I mean, okay, you know, an elementalist can set an area on fire. With a engineer, you can stick turrets down and then grenades. You can just, if enemies want to come near you, forget it. They are not doing it. But it's a little bit weaker than all the other professions I played, to be honest. And in all honesty, the strongest profession I played was probably the necromancer. I mean, even the normal skills, forgetting about the fact you can summon an army of minions, the normal weapon skills seem to do a hell of a lot more damage than anything else I played with. I mean, you had, I think the one of the weapons, you had a dual slash attack in your normal spammable skill, and then you could just hold down another button to slash them more times, and the damage output is absurd. And then you have a minion with you as a healing skill who attacks people and sends you health, and then if you get a bit low on health, you can just kill that minion for even more health, and then if you want to, you can steal health from people. It's a pretty powerful class. You know, it's pretty mad compared to all the other professions I played. I do wish I'd tried out the other professions a little bit. The Mesmer in particular, I loved the Mesmer in Guild Wars 1. I really did. Easily my favourite class, just playing interrupt with people. Just sitting there with your interrupts on a monk is hilarious. But and I really want to try it. I know it's not so interrupt based in this game anymore, it's more focused on illusions, but that's even more fun from what I can see. The idea that this person could be attacking you, well, seemingly attacking you, but you've just run off. You know, I think that's hilarious, and I think there's going to be some fantastic stories coming out about people getting duped by the Mesmer class. The Thief, I don't know about the Thief, because again, melee versus range. If you have to get into melee range to steal things, it's gonna be a little bit unfair, because the Thief doesn't really have much in the way of armor or health. So you're just gonna run up, steal something, and then get killed. So I don't really fancy it that much. Again, this is something that has to be balanced. But all in all the professions do seem pretty unique. You know, they all seem to have their own, certainly their own play styles, but they all seem to do different things very well. The Elementalist quite clearly does a lot more area damage than anyone else. The Necromancer seems to do loads of single target damage. The Engineer, as I said, is very good at area denial and support. The Guardian is very good at defense and protecting your allies. They all have their own niche, but they can do everything else. I mean, you can quite easily create an Engineer to do area damage. It's probably wouldn't be quite as good as an Elementalist, although I don't really know. Again, I didn't get a chance to play any high level content, which is something I really want to do. I want to play high level content to find out what the professions get like at the end, and that's going to be one of the first things I do in the next beta, if there is one, which there should be. But I want to check out some proper level 80 content and see how the professions progress, if the engineer gets any better or stuff. But that's my impressions on the game so far. It looks pretty fantastic, in all honesty. When the beta closed down and I couldn't play it anymore, all I wanted to do was play it. I went through my list of games on Steam. I was just staring at them like, why aren't any of these games Guild Wars 2? It's one of those things, the more I played that game, the more I wanted to play it, and I just sort of played it with this huge grin on my face. But again, it has problems, but it's so fun that I can overlook those problems, and I have faith in the development team that they can get those fixed. And I really hope they do, because if they can, then it's going to be probably one of the best games of all time, in my opinion. But, you know, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. There'll undoubtedly be more Guild Wars 2 content on this channel in the future, so subscribe and leave your comments and opinions in the video, the comment section below. Thanks.